The morning sun cast long shadows across the golden fields of Kepler 442b. Veltar moved slowly through the grain, his purple skin catching the light as he checked each plant with gentle hands. The crop was almost ready for harvest. Soon his people would gather to celebrate another successful growing season. Veltar had lived on this world for over 200 years, and every morning brought him the same quiet joy. His people, the Zephyrians, had never known conflict. They grew food, made beautiful art, and shared their thoughts through their natural telepathic abilities. War was a concept they had heard about from intercepted alien broadcasts, but it seemed as foreign to them as flying was to a fish. The peaceful morning was broken by a sound Veltar had never heard before. A deep rumbling came from the sky. He looked up and saw dark shapes moving through the clouds. Ships, not the small trading vessels that occasionally visited their world, but large, aggressive-looking craft with sharp edges and glowing red markings. Spread through the telepathic network that connected all Zephyrians. Veltar felt the fear of his people wash over him like a cold wave. The ships were landing in the central valley, crushing the crops beneath their weight. Armed figures emerged from the vessels, carrying weapons that sparked with energy. Veltar ran toward the village, his long legs carrying him quickly across the fields. Other Zephyrians were already gathering in the main square, their large eyes wide with terror. Elder Moron, the oldest among them, stood in the center trying to calm everyone through the mental link they all shared. "What do they want?" someone asked through the telepathic connection. "They are taking our people," came the reply from those near the landing site. "They have weapons. They are not here to trade." Veltar reached the village just as the first group of raiders approached. They were tall, reptilian creatures with thick scales and cold yellow eyes. Their leader stepped forward and spoke in a harsh, guttural language that the Zephyrians did not understand. When the aliens received no response, one of them raised a strange device. It projected a beam of light that formed words in the air. The words were in Galactic Standard, a language some Zephyrians had learned from listening to space transmissions. "You are now property of the Korthic Empire. Resist and die. Obey and live as slaves." Elder Moron stepped forward, his aged body trembling but his voice steady. "We are peaceful people. We have done nothing to harm you. Why do you come to our world with weapons?" The Korthic leader laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Because you are weak and we are strong. Your telepathic abilities will serve our masters well. You will work in the mind link factories, processing information for the Empire." "Please," Moron said. "We only want to live in peace. Take our crops if you need food. Take our art if it pleases you, but leave our people alone." The Korthic raised his weapon and fired. Elder Moron fell to the ground, his body smoking from the energy blast. The telepathic scream of pain and shock from the other Zephyrians was so intense that several of them collapsed. "No more talk," the Korthic commander said. "Round them up. The young and healthy ones go to the ships. The old and weak are useless." Veltar watched in horror as his people were herded like animals. The Korthics used energy whips to force them into groups. Anyone who moved too slowly was struck down. The Zephyrians had no weapons, no way to fight back. Their entire culture was built on cooperation and peace, but Veltar remembered something. Years ago, they had detected strange transmissions from a distant star system. The signals had been strong and clear, carrying sounds and images from a species that called themselves humans. The Zephyrians had been fascinated by these broadcasts, studying the human language and learning about their society. Humans seemed different from other species. Their broadcasts showed both great kindness and terrible violence. They told stories of protecting the weak and fighting against oppression. They had a concept that the Zephyrians found difficult to understand, but deeply moving. They called it justice. As the Korthiks continued their brutal roundup, Veltar made a desperate decision. He slipped away from the main group and ran toward the communication center at the edge of the village. If he could reach the long-range transmitter, maybe he could send a message to the humans. The communication building was small and simple, designed only for basic scientific observations and cultural exchanges. Veltar had spent many hours here, listening to human broadcasts and learning their language. His English was not perfect, but it was good enough to make himself understood. He activated the transmitter and set it to the frequency that human ships used for emergency communications. His hands shook as he composed the message. He could hear the sounds of his people suffering outside, but he forced himself to focus. "Hello, human ships," he began, speaking slowly into the transmitter. "This is Veltar from planet Kepler 442b. We are peaceful people. We grow food and make art. Bad ships have come to our world. They have weapons. They are taking our people to be slaves. We have no weapons. We do not know how to fight. Please help us. Small help is enough. We do not ask for much. Just please help." He sent the message on repeat, broadcasting it in all directions. Then he waited, hoping that somewhere in the vast darkness of space, someone would hear their cry for help. Outside, the Korthiks continued their work. They moved efficiently, like they had done this many times before. They loaded groups of Zephyrians into transport containers, separating families and friends. The telepathic cries of anguish from his people filled Veltar's mind, but he stayed at the transmitter, sending the message again and again. Hours passed. The Korthiks had taken nearly half the population. Their ships were preparing to leave with their first load of prisoners when something unexpected happened. A new voice came through the communication system, speaking clear English with a crisp, professional tone. "This is Captain Lisa Monroe of the United Earth Federation vessel New Horizon. We have received your distress call. We are 3 days away from your position. Hold on. Help is coming." Veltar felt a surge of hope, but also confusion. Through the telepathic network, he shared the message with his surviving people. They were grateful that someone had heard their call, but they could not understand why a single ship would risk itself against 8 Korthik vessels. What the Zephyrians did not realize was that they had just made contact with a species that viewed the protection of innocence as a sacred duty. Their simple request for small help had reached people who believed that no help should ever be small when lives were at stake. The message was already spreading through human communication networks, and humanity was beginning to respond. Captain Lisa Monroe stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, staring at the star map that showed their destination. 3 days to reach the Zephyrian system. 3 days while innocent people suffered under alien raiders. The thought made her stomach turn. "Commander Sullivan, what's our maximum speed?" she asked her second in command. Jake Sullivan checked his instruments. "We're already pushing the engines hard, Captain. We might gain a few hours if we risk an overload, but not much more." Monroe nodded grimly. The New Horizon was an exploration vessel, not a warship. They had light weapons for defense and a crew of only 200. Against 8 Korthik raiders, they would be badly outgunned, but that did not matter. Someone had called for help, and humans answered when help was needed. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Monroe ordered. "Priority Alpha. First contact situation with hostile third-party involvement. Request immediate support." The message traveled through space faster than any ship could fly. It reached Terra Station, the massive military base orbiting Earth, within hours. Admiral Rachel Stone was in her office reviewing supply reports when the communication arrived. Admiral Stone had gray hair and tired eyes, but her mind was still sharp after 40 years of military service. She had seen wars and peace, victory and defeat. She knew that first contact situations could change the entire balance of power in the galaxy. "Get me intelligence," she said to her aide. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Hayes. Hayes was a young officer with quick reflexes and quicker thinking. He brought up the file on his tablet. "Admiral, we have limited data on the Korthek Empire. They appear to be a militaristic species that raids other worlds for resources and slaves. Their technology is roughly equal to ours, but they have more experience in ship-to-ship combat." Stone studied the information. How many ships in a typical Korthek raiding fleet? Between 5 and 12 vessels, usually. Fast attack craft and transport ships. They prefer quick strikes against defenseless worlds. And what do we know about these Zephyrians? Hayes scrolled through the data. Very little. They appear to be a peaceful agricultural species. No military capability that we can detect. The distress call we intercepted suggests they have never encountered warfare before. Admiral Stone was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the message from Captain Monroe. She thought about the innocent people being taken as slaves. She thought about humanity's first impression on these new aliens. "Launch Battle Group 7, she said finally. "Full combat deployment." Hayes looked surprised. "Ma'am, that's 12 ships and over 8,000 personnel. Are you sure that's necessary for a single raiding fleet?" Stone's expression was hard as steel. "Colonel, when someone calls for help, we don't send just enough. We send more than enough. We send so much help that the problem goes away permanently. Within 2 hours, Battle Group 7 was preparing to launch. The flagship was the UEF Earth's Fury, a massive dreadnought commanded by Captain Roy Chun. Chun was a veteran of the Centauri conflict, known for his tactical brilliance and unwavering dedication to protecting civilian populations. "Captain Chun," Admiral Stone said over the communication link, "you are to proceed to the Zephyrian system and render all necessary assistance to Captain Monroe and the local population. Rules of engagement are defensive, but if fired upon, you have authorization to use whatever force is required." Chun's voice was calm and professional. "Understood, Admiral." "What about the Korthek Empire? Are we looking at a potential war?" "That depends on them," Stone replied. "If they withdraw peacefully, we'll treat this as a local incident. If they choose to fight, we'll show them why that's a mistake." The Battle Group 7 ships were impressive, even by human standards. Besides the Earth Fury, there were 4 heavy cruisers: the Boston, the Kiev, the Cairo, and the Sydney. The 4 destroyers were the Lightning, the Thunder, the Storm, and the Tempest. 3 support ships carried supplies, repair equipment, and medical facilities. But the military response was only the beginning. News of the first contact situation spread quickly through human space. The story of peaceful farmers being attacked by alien raiders struck a chord with people across the colonies. Captain Danny Walsh of the private security firm Titan Defense called his headquarters. "Sir, we've got a situation. There's a species of peaceful aliens being enslaved, and the military is responding. I'm requesting permission to take our ships and assist." The response was immediate. "Permission granted. Take the entire Third Fleet. This is exactly why we exist." Similar conversations were happening across human space. The merchant marine Captain Ellen Price volunteered her cargo ship, hastily fitted with defensive weapons. The mining company Asteroid Resources offered their heavy haulers, equipped with industrial lasers that could serve as weapons. Even civilian volunteers were stepping forward. Dr. Kevin Moore, a xenobiologist, requested passage to the Zephyrian system. "If we're making first contact, we need to understand their biology and culture. This could be the beginning of a new alliance." Back aboard the New Horizon, Captain Monroe was trying to establish better communication with the Zephyrians. The aliens' English was limited, but they were learning quickly. Veltar had become the primary contact, speaking for his people through the telepathic network they shared. "How many of your people have been taken?" Monroe asked. "Many hundreds," Veltar replied, his voice heavy with sorrow. "They take the young and strong. They leave the old and sick. They say we will work in mind-link factories." Monroe felt anger rising in her chest. Using telepathic beings as living computers was a form of slavery that made her sick. "Veltar, I need you to understand something. More human ships are coming. Many more. We are going to help you." "How many ships?" Veltar asked. Monroe checked her latest update from Fleet Command. The numbers kept growing as more volunteers joined the mission. At least 12 military vessels, plus numerous civilian ships. Maybe 40 or 50 total. There was a long pause. Through the telepathic network, Veltar was sharing this information with his people. "Captain Monroe, we asked for small help." "Why do you send so many ships?" Monroe smiled grimly. "Because that's not how humans work. When someone needs help, we don't send just enough. We send everything we have." The concept seemed to confuse the Zephyrians. Their society was built on taking only what was needed and giving only what was asked for. The idea of overwhelming generosity was foreign to them. Meanwhile, the Korthak raiding fleet continued their operation. War leader Thakmer was pleased with the results. The Zephyrians were perfect slaves, docile, intelligent, and telepathically gifted. They would bring high prices in the Empire's markets. "How many prisoners do we have?" he asked his subordinate. "Nearly 2,000, war leader. The first transport ship is ready to depart." "Good. Continue loading the remaining ships. I want to be finished here within 2 days." Thakmer had no idea that his simple raiding operation had just triggered the largest humanitarian military response in human history. He did not know that dozens of ships were racing toward his position, carrying thousands of angry humans who viewed his actions as crimes against innocent people. The Korthak Empire was about to learn that attacking peaceful species was a very dangerous thing to do when humans were watching. The New Horizon dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian system. Captain Monroe immediately ordered battle stations as her sensors detected the Korthak fleet. 8 ships were in orbit around the planet, with 2 more on the surface. "Loading prisoners." "Combat alert," Monroe announced to her crew. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." The bridge of the New Horizon buzzed with activity. Lieutenant Amy Foster worked the communication systems, while Commander Sullivan coordinated the weapon systems. They all knew they were badly outgunned, but they also knew that help was coming. "Captain," Foster reported, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Korthak ships. They're charging weapons." Monroe opened a channel to the Korthak fleet. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Monroe of the United Earth Federation. You are attacking a world under human protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came quickly. The voice was harsh and filled with amusement. "Human ship, this is War Leader Thakmer of the Korthak Empire. We have heard of your species. You are new to space travel. You think you can threaten us with one small ship?" Monroe kept her voice calm and professional. "War Leader, I strongly advise you to reconsider your position. You have 10 minutes to withdraw your forces before additional human ships arrive." Thakmer's laughter echoed through the communication system. "We count 1 human ship against 8 Korthak vessels. Your mathematics are very poor, Captain. Perhaps you should return to your home world and learn to count better." "Sir," Monroe replied, "I recommend you use those 10 minutes to contact your superiors and inform them of the situation." "Enough talk," Thakmer snarled. "Prepare to be destroyed, foolish human." The Korthak ships began moving into attack formation. Their weapons powered up, energy crackling along the hull plating. The new horizon was alone against impossible odds. Then, space itself seemed to explode with light. Battle Group 7 dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 12 massive human warships appeared as if from nowhere, their hulls gleaming with weapon ports and shield generators. The dreadnought Earth's Fury led the formation, its size dwarfing the largest Korthic vessel. The silence on all communication channels was complete. Captain Shun's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. "This is Captain Shun of the UEF Dreadnought. Earth's Fury. All Korthic vessels have 30 seconds to power down weapons and prepare for surrender. Any hostile action will be considered an act of war against humanity and our allies." On the surface of the planet, the Zephyrians watched in amazement. Veltar stood in the ruins of his village, surrounded by his surviving people. Their telepathic network was buzzing with shock and wonder. "The humans sent so many ships," someone whispered through the mental link. "We asked for small help," another added. "They sent an entire fleet." Veltar felt tears running down his face. His people had never seen war before, but they understood strength when they saw it. The human ships were beautiful and terrible, like storms made of metal and light. Above them, War Leader Thakmer stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His 8 ships were completely surrounded. The human formation was perfect, with overlapping fields of fire that left no escape routes. "War Leader," his tactical officer reported, "their weapons are far more advanced than our intelligence indicated. The largest ship alone carries enough firepower to destroy our entire fleet." Thakmer's mind raced. The Korthic Empire had built its reputation on attacking weak targets. They had never faced an opponent with superior technology and overwhelming numbers. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Captain Shun," Thakmer said, his voice no longer confident. "Perhaps we can discuss this situation like civilized beings." "The time for discussion was before you attacked innocent people," Shun replied. "You have 15 seconds to comply with our demands." But the human response was far from over. As the Korthic ships began powering down their weapons, more ships continued to arrive. The private security fleet of Titan Defense emerged from hyperspace, led by Captain Walsh in the heavy cruiser Defender. "Earth's Fury, this is Captain Walsh of Titan Defense. We're here to assist in any way possible." Minutes later, the merchant marine vessels arrived. Captain Price's cargo ship Prosperity had been hastily equipped with defensive weapons. "This is Captain Price of the Merchant Marine. We're carrying medical supplies and emergency food for the planetary population." A mining company's ships came. Next, their industrial lasers retrofitted as weapons. Dr. Moore's research vessel appeared, equipped with xenobiology laboratories to help treat wounded Zephyr IANS. By the end of the first hour, 47 human ships of various sizes occupied the Zephyrian system. The Korthic fleet looked tiny and insignificant in comparison. War Leader Thakmer had never seen anything like it. In his experience, military responses were calculated and limited. You sent exactly what was needed and no more. The human response was beyond his comprehension. "How many humans are there?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Unknown, War Leader. But based on the number of ships they have deployed, their civilization must be enormous." Captain Shun opened a channel to all ships in the system. "This is the Earth Fury. All Korthic vessels will immediately release their prisoners and submit to boarding parties. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." The Korthic transport ships began opening their cargo holds. Hundreds of Zephyrians stumbled out, weak and frightened, but alive. Human medical teams were already preparing to beam down to the planet's surface. Veltar received a communication from Captain Monroe. "Veltar, can you hear me? This is Captain Monroe. Your people are safe now. The Korthic ships are surrendering." Captain Monroe, Veltar replied, his voice filled with wonder. We do not understand. We asked for small help. Why did you send so many ships? Monroe's voice was gentle but firm. Because that's what neighbors do, Veltar. When someone calls for help, we come running. All of us. The concept of neighbor was difficult for the Zephyrians to translate, but the meaning was clear. The humans considered them worthy of protection, even though they had never met before. On the bridge of the Earth's Fury, Captain Shun watched as the Korthic prisoners were transferred to human custody. The enemy ships were secured, their weapons disabled. The threat was over. Captain, his communications officer reported, were receiving messages from across human space. More ships are volunteering to assist. The civilian response is unprecedented. Chun smiled. Send them our thanks, but tell them we have the situation under control. However, let them know we'll need construction ships and supply vessels. We're going to be here for a while. The liberation of the Zephyrian world was complete, but the humans were not finished. They had discovered a peaceful species under attack, and they intended to make sure it never happened again. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's idea of small help was very different from everyone else's. 3 months after the liberation of the Zephyrian world, the changes were visible from orbit. What had once been a simple agricultural planet now hosted the largest construction project in human space. Firebase Zephyr was taking shape on the northern continent, a massive military installation that would serve as humanity's first permanent base in this sector of the galaxy. Admiral Rachel Stone stood on the observation deck of her flagship, the Terra's Shield, watching the construction. Crew's work. The enormous command carrier had arrived 2 weeks after the initial conflict, bringing with it the full weight of human civilization's commitment to their new allies. Admiral, her aide Colonel Hayes reported, we're receiving another diplomatic request, this time from the Melody Republic. They're asking for a meeting to discuss mutual defense agreements. Stone nodded. It was the 15th such request this month. Word of the Zephyrian incident had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. The story of humanity's overwhelming response to a simple distress call had become legendary. Schedule the meeting for next week, Stone replied, and make sure our xenology team is prepared. We need to understand their culture before we make any commitments. Down on the planet's surface, the relationship between humans and Zephyrians was growing stronger every day. Captain Monroe, now promoted to Admiral, walked through the rebuilt central village with Veltar. The Zephyrian had become the unofficial ambassador for his people, and his English had improved dramatically. Admiral Monroe, Veltar said, my people are still learning to understand your ways. Yesterday, one of our children fell into the river. Before we could reach him, 3 human soldiers jumped in to save him. They were not even on duty. Monroe smiled. That's just how we are, Veltar. We help because it's the right thing to do. But they could have been hurt, Veltar continued. The water was cold and fast. They risked themselves for one small child who was not even their own species. That's exactly why they did it, Monroe explained. In human culture, protecting children is one of our highest duties. It doesn't matter whose child it is. The concept still amazed the Zephyrians. Their society had always been peaceful and cooperative, but the human willingness to sacrifice for strangers was something entirely new to them. At the construction site of Firebase Zephyr, Colonel Danny Walsh supervised the installation of the LATEST defensive systems. The former private security captain had accepted a commission in the human military to oversee the base's security. How's the progress, Colonel? Asked Dr. Kevin Moore, the xenobiologist who had established the cultural exchange program. Ahead of schedule, Walsh replied. The Zephyrians are incredible workers. They understand each other's thoughts perfectly, so there's no miscommunication. And they're eager to learn our technology. Dr. Moore nodded toward a group of young Zephyrians who were working alongside human engineers. They're teaching us as much as we're teaching them. Their agricultural techniques could revolutionize farming on a dozen human worlds. The exchange program had become one of the most successful aspects of the Human-Zephyrian Alliance. Humans learned advanced farming methods and meditation techniques that helped with stress and mental health. In return, the Zephyrians gained access to human technology and military protection. But the real change was happening across the galaxy. The Korthic Empire, after losing an entire raiding fleet, had declared humans to be dangerously irrational and issued warnings to all member species about human military doctrine. The warning read, "Human military responses are disproportionate and unpredictable. They respond to minor threats with overwhelming force. They appear to value the lives of unknown alien species as much as their own. This behavior is illogical and extremely dangerous." Other species had a very different reaction. The Tauran Collective, a group of peaceful trading worlds, sent a diplomatic mission to the Zephyrian system. Their ambassador, an insect-like being named Clickwhistle, met with Admiral Stone in the newly constructed diplomatic center. Admiral Stone, Clickwhistle, said through his translator, "My people have heard of your response to the Zephyrian crisis. We are a peaceful species, like them. We face similar threats from raiders and pirates. Would humanity be willing to extend protection to other worlds?" Stone's answer was carefully considered. The United Earth Federation believes that all peaceful species have the right to exist without fear. We are willing to discuss mutual defense agreements with any civilization that shares our values. Within weeks, a new alliance was forming. The Peaceful Worlds Coalition included the Zephyrians, the Tauran Collective, the Melody Republic, and 6 other species that had reached out to humanity after hearing about the rescue operation. The galaxy's power structure was shifting. The old aggressive empires that had dominated through force and intimidation found themselves facing a new reality. There was now a coalition of peaceful species, backed by humanity's military might. The Korthic Empire learned this lesson the hard way when they attempted to raid a Tauran mining facility. The attack was detected by human monitoring stations, and the response fleet arrived within hours. The Korthic ships fled without engaging, but the message was clear. Attacking members of the coalition would bring swift retaliation. Back on the Zephyrian world, life had returned to normal in many ways. The farms were producing crops again, and the artists had resumed creating their beautiful sculptures and paintings. But now their art decorated human ships and stations throughout the sector. Veltar stood in his fields, watching human and Zephyrian children play together. The young ones had adapted quickly to each other's presence. Human children were learning basic telepathy from their Zephyrian friends, while Zephyrian children practiced spoken English with excitement. "Veltar," came a voice behind him. It was Elder Moran, who had survived the Korthic attack and was slowly recovering from his injuries. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the humans had not heard our call?" Veltar considered the question. "Every day, Elder, but I think the humans would say that what matters is not what could have happened, but what did happen. They came when we called, and now they stay to make sure we never need to call again," Moran added. A new ship was arriving in orbit. It was a small vessel from the Vrathan Collective, another species that had heard about humanity's protection of peaceful worlds. The ship's captain sent a simple message that was becoming common throughout the galaxy. "We have heard of humans. We have heard of your protection of peaceful peoples. We wish to be neighbors." Admiral Stone's response was transmitted throughout the system, and eventually across known space. "Welcome to the neighborhood." The message became humanity's unofficial motto in their dealings with alien species. It was simple, direct, and carried a promise that resonated across the galaxy. attack the peaceful, and humanity would respond with overwhelming force. Seek to live in peace, and humanity would respond with overwhelming friendship. The Zephyrian world had become the center of a new galactic order. The old rule of might makes right was being challenged by a new principle. Those who protect the innocent will always find allies. As the sun set over the golden fields of Kepler 442b, human and Zephyrian families gathered for their evening meal. Children of both species played together, while their parents shared stories and dreams for the future. The galaxy was changing, one protected world at a time. And it had all started with a simple message. Help us, please. Small help is enough. Humanity had responded with everything they had